Should we require alcohol to have a warning label saying that it causes cancer, just like we have for tobacco? So we see that alcohol causes over 100,000 deaths per year based on cancer alone, and it is actually responsible for 4% of all of the cancer deaths globally. And because of this, countries are starting to actually require warning labels being put on them saying that there is a link between alcohol and cancer. So South Korea has required that you put warning labels on alcohol linking it to health risks, although it doesn't have to specifically say cancer. And Ireland just passed a warning label requirement, although it originally was supposed to take place this year, but is now set to actually start in 2028. The alcohol lobby made a plea saying that, like, we're already being punished by tariffs right now. We can't take this additional warning label, and so they pushed it back until 2028. Now, one of the main reasons that people say that we don't need warning labels is because they say that they're not effective. So what is the research actually out there as to whether they work? First, let's look to the data that we have in the tobacco field, because they also have warning labels too. And what we see is that 118 countries have actually required warning labels on tobacco saying that it's linked to cancer. Some of them have like very graphic images. Like, there are all sorts of different warning labels that countries use. And what they see is that there was a decline in smoking rates after the warning labels were actually mandated. Problem is that this is not causal data, so there are probably a whole bunch of other things that changed on a countrywide level that could be linked to decrease in smoking that are not just the warning labels. Side note, there are weird rules about these warning labels. They have to be over 30% of the entire package, which makes sense because if you tell someone to just put on a warning label, then they're like, sweet, I'll just put this little tiny thing in the corner that nobody can see. But we do see that it might be linked to a decrease in smoking behavior, especially for people who are like occasional smokers. So do we see similar effects with things like alcohol? Well, there was an experiment where they actually basically had fake shoppers. So they had people go into a store and then they had alcohol with warning labels, some with images and some with text, and then they didn't have the warning labels. And what they actually found was that the presence of the warning label made people far less likely to buy the alcoholic drinks. However, the image alone, so having some sort of image, actually seemed to work best. And they also see that the more specific you are, the better that works too. So if you, instead of saying things like alcohol causes cancer, you say things like alcohol causes bowel cancer, that actually works better. So the more specific the risk, the more likely people are to actually listen to it. And that's actually one of the controversies in terms of like, should we actually have it? People are like, well, people are not going to pay attention to it anyway, so what is the point? So in like experiments, we do see that warning labels might help, but in kind of the big picture science, we don't have that great data showing that they actually work. Which means that alcohol lobbyists can very easily push back and say, why do we need to spend the money when we don't even know if it's effective? So currently only 2 countries have made this one of their priorities, but it is something that's likely to come up, especially when we keep kind of building up the evidence against alcohol. So it's something that you should be considering. Do you think that we should require alcohol warning labels?